Hello everyone and welcome back to Watch World, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Omega Seamaster 300M Professional. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. So guys, I hope you're all keeping well. In front of me here is the Omega Seamaster 300 Professional. This is the reference number 210.30.42.20.04.001. This has the white wave dial, as we can see here, with the black ceramic bezel. Now, personally, I think this watch has one of the best movements ever made. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. I made a video a couple of weeks back comparing this watch to the Felida Seamaster, which is a homage of this piece, and I spoke about how it compared to that. But today we're going to look at this watch in a bit more depth than I did in the last video. So let's start off with the specs and get them out of the way. This is a 42mm watch in case diameter. It is 48mm in lug to lug, 20mm in the inner lug width, and 13.5mm in thickness. These are good measurements for a dive watch. 42mm may be a bit too big for smaller wrists, but it would not be the end of the world either. So I spoke about the movement before. This watch features Omega's in-house caliber 8800. And my god, this is an impressive movement. It has a power reserve of 55 hours, beats at 25,200 beats per hour, and has 35 joules. Now this is where it gets more interesting. The watch is METAS certified, meaning it has master chronometer status. As we can see, the words master chronometer are written down just above the date wheel. Now METAS not only tests watch movements, but it also tests the watches after the movement has been installed, unlike COSC testing. They conduct 8 different tests related to quality, accuracy, durability, and other things like that. So you know that when you buy a watch with this certification, that it is going to last, it's going to be reliable, and it's going to be durable. It also has a coaxial escapement. The coaxial functions with a system of 3 pallets that separate the locking function from the impulse. And basically what this means is that the parts inside this watch that move to make it work are using radial friction instead of sliding friction. This reduces the need to lubricate the parts inside. This means that you get greater accuracy over time and also longer periods of time before the watch needs to be serviced. And the last thing on this caliber is also the anti-magnetism. This watch is resistant to 15,000 Gauss, which is just incredible. Gauss is how magnetic resistance is measured, and mechanical watch movements can be very susceptible to magnetic fields, which can affect the accuracy of the watch's ability to keep time. To put 15,000 Gauss into context, the Rolex Milgauss, a watch that is designed specifically for this purpose of negating magnetism, is resistant to 1000 Gauss. Therefore, there is pretty much no chance of magnetism ever interfering with this watch's timekeeping ability. So put all these points together and you get one hell of a movement, which is why the Caliber 8800 from Omega is one of my personal favourite movements. To get a movement this good in a watch at this price point is simply just phenomenal. So moving on from the movement, let's take a look around the watch. We have a screw down crown. If we move to the side here, signed with the Omega logo. Crown guards are also present around it. And on the dial, we have the classic Omega wave dial that we associate so much with the Seamaster, with a date function at 6 o'clock and a helium escape valve at the 10 o'clock position just on the outside of the case. We also have a sapphire crystal in front of the dial with anti-reflective coating on both sides. The dial is made of polished white ceramic and the waves are etched on with a laser. We have a black ceramic bezel that is unidirectional and has 120 clicks with absolutely no backplay whatsoever. As you can see here, we have a skeleton handset and 300 meters of water resistance, and the watch features Super Luminova, which we will see later on. So we can see this amazing movement that I spoke about earlier through the display caseback. That is also made of sapphire crystal, and if we look here, we have a simple push clasp that goes in like that, and if we look inside the clasp, we have a push button here that allows us to adjust the watch on the fly to allow for changes in wrist circumference on hot and cold days. The Omega Seamaster bracelet is something that gets a lot of criticism on social media platforms and forums and things like that, but personally I think it's comfortable and it does the job well. It might not be as nice to look at as, say, an Oyster bracelet or a Jubilee bracelet or a Speedmaster bracelet, but it does the job. However, I do think it was very lazy of Omega to not taper the bracelet. It's the same width all the way down, as opposed to starting off chunky at the case of the watch and tapering down as it moves to the clasp. Unfortunately, it's not present on this watch or on this bracelet. But again, for me personally, it's not a complete deal breaker. And here is what the watch looks like on the wrist. Now, for a 13.5mm thick watch, it actually wears very flat on the wrist, in my opinion. Bracelet, as I said, is comfortable. 42mm kind of works perfectly on the 7-inch wrist. If you have in and around a 7-inch wrist and you prefer larger watches, this is probably the perfect watch for you. If you have a 7mm wrist but you prefer smaller watches, then maybe not so much. But yeah, for me, as I prefer the larger watches, I think this is absolutely perfect. So if you are like me, have a 7-inch wrist and are looking for, a larger watch, 42mm is absolutely perfect. And like I said, it still wears very flat on the wrist. It has a flat profile and the bracelet is perfectly comfortable. As I have it on the wrist, I'll show you the clasp here. So if you take down the clasp, if your wrist is expanding on holidays and you need that extra bit of length on the bracelet, you can just push this button out and it lengthens the bracelet and gives you a bit more room if it's getting too tight for you. And now it's time for the Loom Shot. Now the loom on this watch is excellent, as you would expect from a watch in this price point. It has Super Luminova on the hands and indices. Unfortunately, no loom on the bezel bar except the pip at the top. Unlike actually the Felida that I reviewed a couple of weeks back in comparison to this, which did have a loom bezel. But again, it's not the end of the world. The loom lasts for a long time. I was driving at night a couple of days back and the loom had been charged because I'd stopped to go to a petrol station and the lights had charged the loom up. Once I got back on the road, honestly, I could still read it after 50 minutes to an hour. So the loom on this is absolutely excellent. So guys, there we have it, a look at the Omega Seamaster 300M Professional, the white wave dial with the black ceramic bezel. This is an absolutely outstanding watch and I would recommend it to anyone. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do hit that subscribe button. It really would help out the channel a lot. I hope you all have a great week and I will see you again very soon. Until then, take care for now, guys.